Alright, Leroy Kiflom here. This is video 2 of the blue Jeep with the black top build. This video is going to be more about the tuning and stuff like that for the blue Jeep. So let's dive right in. We'll start with gear tuning. We'll start from the right and work our way left. We'll be backwards. There's a couple different options that you can do with gear tunes. Like I said, for mine, I typically do slow, realistic trail rides with these. So I don't do anything really too aggressive, and I definitely don't look for top speed out of them. A pretty safe medium is going to be like 3.5 for first, and then just kind of trickle down from there, ending with something like this. So first 3.5, second 3, third 2.5, a little bit longer for fourth to get past the threshold from low to high gear, taking it to 1.8, and then finally 1.5. Low gear we'll take to 4.0, all the way low. Another decent one would be like 4.0, 3.8, 3.5, 3.0, and then 1.5 with a 4.0 low gear. That's what I use on most of my crawlers. They're definitely not going to be hill killers, especially with I build these to be low power anyway. Just because the higher power you have, the more wheel spin you get, and thus being less traction. So, but I'll get to that part here in just a minute. We'll jump into the tires. And a lot of this is going to be preference when it comes to tires. Like I said, I have an issue with them being too large and going through the fenders and whatnot. And it really depends on whether or not you want it to be a realistic build or all the way out there build. Did I set that one to 1.1? And I'm sure, as most of you have noticed, that these actually have like what I would call tints in between them. So like 1.1 has, 10 values in it, being that there is a decent little space between, obviously noticeable space, between 1.1 and 1.2. So what I did on this one is I went to 1.2, and right where it turns into 1.1, and I did the same on the front, just to ensure that they're the same size. Again, that's just probably my OCD kicking in, but it does look silly if you're driving around with two different size wheels. Alright. And suspension. Before the video, as you can see, I went in and I've already paid for the options. So I normally like to start at full travel and just kind of knock out some of the things front and rear. So I might bounce front and back, but I'll make sure that I show the perspective side of the vehicle that I'm working on. Spring bracket. This is leaf over or leaf under, and that mounts the leaf springs either under or over the axle. I haven't noticed a huge difference out of that, except for the aesthetic values. These are actually leaf spring mounts, also called shackles, if you will. So this adjusts the length which in theory should adjust the preload of the spring. Like I said, and someone feel free to chime in the comments and let me know if developers have even listed whether or not these things make changes. Since they're in the tuning side of things, I suspect that maybe they do, or they plan for them to. I just haven't noticed a huge difference. So I just make it look nice, I guess. I make it look the way I want it to. We'll go with shock number 1. Same in the rear. We'll do spring over as well. And then, okay, so where things start to matter. Axle width in the front. Since I don't have the fender flares, I don't want them to stick out too much. I normally go out to 3, and then right at the top end of 2. So as you can see, even though the number says 2, there's quite a bit of variance. And like I said, it's because there's tenths in between. So 2 and 2 tenths, 2 and 3 tenths, up until 3. So like I said, I go to 2, and then, so it'd be technically 2 and 9 tenths. But I do that for the front and rear. Actually, the rear looks like it needs to come out just a little bit more. Alright. And then, going back to the front, dampening I normally put around 3,000. We'll go ahead and do the same in the rear. On these, it differs quite a bit when you get, especially like into the crawlers with trophy front axles and stuff like that. You'll see a lot of weird dampening combinations, but in these it's not really that wild or differing from the front to the rear, so it's fine to run them both around the same. And back to the front. Stiffness, I typically run it anywhere between 13 and 15,000. 13,000, obviously it'll be a little bit softer. Then 15, you'll get a little bit more flex. But especially when I had the fender flares on and stuff, that was the magic number that I started running into. The most problems with the wheels just constantly going through the body of really whatever vehicle it is, at that width, so in that stiffness. So we'll go ahead and set the rear to level it. That looks pretty level. Maybe right there. Okay. And then travels at full, both front and rear. You can travel at this point. It's just going to affect your natural ride height and where the dampening will rebound the vehicle to. Max travel is going to give you more articulation, whereas the lower travel is going to give you a faster rebound. And like I said, since we're doing a slow, flexible trail build, we're going to have full travel. What am I missing anything else up front? Nope. Rear steering. In order to do some of the things that this thing is capable of, a little bit of rear steering I've noticed is necessary. But for the realistic factor, I tried to make it not super obvious, so I normally do about 15, 0.15, which I'm assuming is probably a percentage, meaning that the rear axle will turn 15% of what the front axle does. Now that's just a guess, but just based off of like visual observation, I think that's what that number represents. So, like I said, about 15. It's not super noticeable visually, but performance-wise, you can definitely tell, and it really helps. I think that will take care of that. And, of course, we can do this. So you can see even at max speed, this thing definitely holds its own. It's not all over the place. And then if we were to start over at a low speed, it definitely has enough flex to forgivingly go over, just about whatever terrain you throw at it. It's not bouncing all over the place. It's actually doing pretty well on these. Just eating those bumps. Alright. So we'll back out of that. We went through the gear tuning. Dyno run's not going to be necessary on this one because I'm not doing a whole lot of power adders. I actually typically just do, if not a stock naturally aspirated engine, I do a turbo diesel. So this one I did already do the diesel swap and the performance upgrades. As you can see, the engine power is stock. However, it is diesel swapped, and the turbos are stage 4. Max grip, maximum weight reduction. We already discussed the diesel swap. Maximum durability. I like the parking brake. Developers, come on, this thing's not cheap. So if we could actually make it a little more functional, instead of parking on a hill and it rolling backwards at any given time anyway, that would be cool. But I also like it, just as a secondary brake. So I ran a little bit long with this video, so I will actually do the test drive in a third video. So I'll see you then.